From the Fox Studios in downtown Panama City, it's News View with Lee Sullivan.
Let's talk about your endangered freedoms, news and views with an attitude.
Good evening, it's News View. I'm Lee Sullivan. Thank you for allowing me in, visiting with Ron Hart, syndicated columnist, and not nearly as frequent a guest as I would like to see him, but when he's down this way over towards Rosemary, he usually is kind enough to stop by and visit with me. I always enjoy that. So here we are at the end of the year. Look back over 2010. You know, what calls for you in the in the distant past of 2010 as we close it out?
Sarah Milton, the girl that got engaged to Prince William over in England.
Commoner.
Yeah, commoner, married him, and very charismatic, beautiful woman, you know, and the royal family's worried right now about the whole situation. You have a very charismatic, likable woman who's overshadowing her husband, and they're really fearful that the country's not going to buy another, traffic accident in the tunnel.
Really? Really?
So, that happen.
Really?
That could be bad. Most of the year, I think, has been relatively good. I mean, toward the end of the year, the rise of the Tea Party was a very important part of what happened. The November elections, I think, will turn the tide against this liberal agenda that Obama has. The stars and celebrities, we're in a celebrity society now. It's not really a news-driven society. It's a celebrity, reality show-driven society. We have a guy who's known by the nation. He has a nickname after his abdominal muscles. The situation. I mean, it's a real world. I mean, Heidi Montag, a name that we never heard of before in Spencer, that they've gone through $10 million of money, plastic surgery. This woman, it was on the Hills or something, apparently. $10 million, they're going to file bankruptcy. But apparently, in the courts of L.A., if you don't have a publicist and you file bankruptcy, one will be appointed for you by the court.
Really?
So they're still out there making news. I mean, if you go on reality TV, sadly, you have to be the dumbest of the dumb. I mean, no one wants to see boring, right? So you got to be snooky. Right. You got to be these odd people on TV, and that's the culture that it's going toward. Not your and my culture, but the kids' culture is that way. Many people are getting their news through Jon Stewart on these comedy shows. That's what I did in my column. There's a huge void for humor, and I try to make factual points and then make fun of them. No one does that on the right. The humor has been the sole province of the left. David Letterman's staff is left of Michael Moore. I mean,
right.
You got very leftist comedy writers. They're still telling Bush jokes. They always tell Sarah Palin jokes. Very few Obama jokes. He's sacred cow. He's off the thing. So I think you're seeing people get more and more of their news, obviously, from the internet, young kids, and off of TV and comedy show. And it's been said a long time ago, and someone said about my columns, oftentimes there's more truth in humor than there are facts.
Colbert is another one
Yeah.
that seems to be.
Yeah, he's done well. But he is a faux conservative. He does the conservative as a comic. I'm dumb. I'm conservative. I'm Bill O'Reilly. See, so that's from the left too. If you think about it, well, he's supposed to be a conservative. He does irony and says stupid things as a conservative, as a character. So there's not well, P.J. O'Rourke is my hero. Is one of the better writers on the libertarian humor side, but there's not much humor on the conservative side. Sean Hannity is painfully boring. I mean, and he's very serious and not funny. Rush Limbaugh has a sense of humor. I like Rush's, but traditionally, humor has been the province of the left. Hopefully, the right will pick up on it and realize it's very palatable to most people. And it's a way to bring people in and to understand your situation. Will Rogers in the old days and others. It depends on your point of view.
Well, I mean, but you make a valid point, don't you think? I mean, don't you think people absorb a little bit more or retain a little bit more when it is interspaced?
Sure.
With humor, I mean.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, humor brings it out as real life. You make fun. What I try to do in my columns is say what Obama and Pelosi are doing, and then make fun of it as absurd. And people are like, yeah, that's kind of stupid. It doesn't fit my core values. That is kind of silly. I mean, that's and the left does a great job of making George Bush out to be a buffoon, and making whoever their enemies are, Sarah Palin out to be. I'm not a fan of Sarah Palin that much. But I defend her because the left attacks her so hard, and it's almost a badge of honor for the left to go after you because they view you as a problem. Your fellow Marco Rubio here in town. I've noticed a lot of late night comics right now trying to go after him because they realize he's a rising star. You've got to cut him off. If you make him into a cartoon, and you take away their seriousness and their potency as a candidacy, that you nip it at the bud, and you've served your leftist agenda well.
So, what about your X-ray of your private parts? How does that work for
TSA.
you? I got an anonymous letter from apparently a female scanner that asked me if I could come back to the airport and go back through.
Insufficient evidence? They weren't sure. They weren't picking anything. I used to, when I used to take a Xanax when I fly. Now I'll just take 1/8 of a Viagra because I don't want to represent well. It's a very poignant moment. So you want to look good going to there. 'Cause, look, you're on camera. Everybody wants to look their best, right? The TSA probably over Christmas handled more packages than UPS. We know that.
Right.
It's an overstep of the government. I mean, I've written a bunch about our freedoms that we've given up after 9/11, and I say that we've gone too far. I think the terrorists have won. If I wait in line and I have to get my toothpaste this big, double checked, I have to be frisked by some corporate goon, that's sitting there at a union job to get done. And they're going to, the TSA is going to unionize. And they're effectively unionized now, but they're going to unionize. And I suggested in my last column a name for them. You got the SEIU, as you know, the Service Employees International Union. The TSA should be the Service Hierarchy International Fraternity of Transportation Legions Employees and Security Services, or shiftless. There should be, it could be their name of their union. But they got jobs for life.
I was trying to keep up with the letters, and I was a little worried about it, but at least we got shift and
shiftless.
less.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, I'm trying to, it's like a
Thank you for adding those.
Yeah. It's like a crossword puzzle. I had to solve for the words backwards, like an algebraic equation. But no, they're there forever, and I hope Panama City does it. I hope that, they would rip away. So look, you have a right to get away. Yeah, get away. Because look, you and I can sit there, as I said in the past, with a cooler of beer and look at that crowd and know what the problem is. It ain't you and me. It ain't grandmom from Wisconsin carrying some cheese to her grandchildren.
Or a 3-year-old child.
It's not a 3-year-old child, and they're so politically correct that they can't get past who's a problem. And from the TSA standpoint, look, the more they frisk, the more they do, the longer they have a job, the more important they are. And if government inserts itself in your life as being important, and they insist upon themselves as being important, then they make themselves important, and they're employed.
Well, how do you respond to people? And I know that you've got to hear it because I hear it. Well, I'd rather be safe.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you hear that because I hear that.
Life's a risky proposition, okay? You step out the door, a brick falls on you. I mean, you're driving down the highway, a rock comes. Life's not without risk, and the notion that the government keeps you safe from risk is a fallacy. The government doesn't keep you safe from risk. Your common sense, your wits about you. There's a study done recently that says because people don't fly, because flying's safer mathematically than driving, because the 3 or 4 to 5% of people who refuse to fly because of TSA every year kills 3 jumbo jets worth of Americans because they drove instead of flown.
On the road.
Now, okay, 3 jumbo jets a year. That's what went down, in Shanksville and on the Pentagon and the World Trade Center. So, I mean, sometimes the cure is worse than the problem, and people don't like to be intruded upon. And you don't know what you get when you go through there. It's just an odd situation. And you know what? Every time it happens, Bin Laden smiles.
When we come back, I want to talk with you about whether or not you see us withdrawing from that. Ron Hart, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Visiting with Ron Hart, syndicated columnist. He's talking about the freedoms that we have abdicated in an effort to be more secure, and people's attitudes about that, and your free shot going through the airport and how that's working out. But at the end of the day, and this is something that Ron and I just are joined at the hip about, we need to quit being the welfare daddy for the world. We need to quit being the police department for the world. We need to bring our money home. We need to bring our troops home, and we need to take care of our own. Okay? We need to get our own house in order. It is disgusting when you look at let's say, South Korea, and we've got more troops defending South Korea than the South Koreans have.
Right. It's a bad notion that somehow we're this great nation-building country that we should be over there tending to other people's business. You know, there's a great sign you see with the president of the country, you know, smiling and waving at people saying, "Miss me yet?" Have you seen that?
Yeah,
Miss me yet?
yeah, George.
Ironically, Saddam Hussein in Iran.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a thug, but
Right.
he ran that country like a thug,
Kept it.
and I wish he was
Right.
back in there doing it and it wasn't us. A thugocracy on occasion does make sense, okay? So we go in there, and it's the old
Hey.
Pottery Barn thing. Break it, you fix it.
You know, though, here, look, the Gulf of Tonkin, okay? The Vietnamese rowboat
Right.
attacks an American warship.
Right.
Let's go to war.
Yeah.
When they make up their mind, when those guys up there that ain't fighting this damn thing
Right.
make up their mind that there's going to be a fight,
Yeah,
they're going to find a
They
reason.
pick a fight, yeah. It's like a drunk guy in a bar. He's going to find somebody to
Right.
fight with. Look, you
Now,
know,
that just goes back in history, boss.
yeah, oh, it's always, you know, look, if you're the
Remember
military
the
commander,
Maine.
you know, if you're Gulf of Tonkin, clearly overblown, intelligence has shown that. And that's, you know, we were talking about in an earlier show, the WikiLeaks. He's a jerk, he's a bozo. But look, at the end of the day, the more we know about our government, the Pentagon Papers with Daniel Ellsberg, into the Vietnam War, it probably saved 10,000 American lives. The more we know about our government and
I
what they're
wouldn't
doing,
disagree with that now.
and the more we know about what the government's doing, starting from the Pentagon Papers to the WikiLeaks, who says, you know, WikiLeaks, they said Afghanistan's not going very well, and there's not much of a chance we're going to do much there. It's the graveyard of empires. I mean, England, Genghis Khan, tough terrain, the Russians, everybody's gone there and lost. We're not going to win this thing. And what is winning? How do you define winning over there?
Owning the caves.
Yeah, on the caves. I mean, these, and we get these.
It is the arrogance of Americans to believe that they can overlay their lifestyle, their beliefs, their mores into a different country who has a totally different set of all of those things and have had it since the beginning of time.
Yeah, my nephew's over there, and he said, look, it's like walking through the Old Testament. At what point do you blow something? Is it like we send $1 million missile to blow up a $10,000 building? I mean, what are we doing? We're just making more enemies. The kids get mad, and they become jihadists because we're over there stomping on their ground. That's what happens with these wars, is that we don't help our cause. Look, we give these terrorists, we call them masterminds, captured mastermind, number 3 on the list, mastermind. Look, all they do is strap bombs on poor boys and tell them Allah's going to give them 72 virgins and walk them into a crowd of people. This is not James Bond stuff. We don't have this huge villain stroking a cat over there. These are very rudimentary religious fundamentalists who are odd. They're not masterminds. We give them too much credit. Just come home, protect our borders.
They kill with impunity. They slaughter their own. There's no selective. I mean, you know, whoever's, like you say, whoever's in the marketplace when the woman comes in wearing the burqa, okay, guess what? They're dead.
Right.
End of story.
Right. And
Ron Hart, we'll be right back. Welcome back, visiting with Ron Hart. It is News View, and Ron and I very seldom have an opportunity to talk about sports, but we have something in common. Favre, okay? Brett, I mean, how many quality athletes do you know that just hold on too long and then it's just pitiful?
yeah, he didn't want to go home. Well, he has a unique distinction of being one of the few men drafted by the NFL and the Confederate Army in the same year. he's getting up there. You hate to see him go down like that. Some part of me says you like the endurance. I mean, he's a tough guy. He's been beaten up. I mean, he kind of gets back up. There's something to be said for that. You know, taking pictures of your crotch maybe not such a good idea.
Right.
But, you know, in his defense, he said that he took a picture of his crotch to send to his wife, but it was intercepted, you know, by a cheerleader. So knowing it's Brett Favre, it's pretty believable that he got intercepted.
All right, really.
Pretty plausible excuse. But I don't think he did it. I mean, a guy that age doesn't know how to use a cell phone. Why would you photograph yourself in Minnesota?
Well, how did they know it was his? I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
how did they figure that thing out? When you get the magic wand, I mean, unless there's a face or something that goes with it, I mean, how do you say, oh, well, that belongs to Wilbur?
I think because it came from a certain text number. That's one way to tell. 2, he hadn't denied it. And when you don't deny something, your quietness is very loud. Same thing with Rex Ryan and his foot fetish thing he's got going on. This coach of the Jets, he's got, again, his own proclivity toward certain things he likes to do, and it got out there on YouTube. I mean, look, we're in a different world.
We had a property appraiser like that.
Did you?
Yeah, size 8.
Really? It's far more prevalent than most people think. I mean, look, it's a victimless crime. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you're willing participants on both sides. Look, as a libertarian, I mean, it is odd to me. It's not my personal desire, but I don't judge people that have that notion to do that, as long as no one's harmed on the other side. Now, pedophilia, a whole different situation.
Exactly.
You have a crime, and you don't have a willing participant. But with things like foot fetishes and
you need to just kill those people. I like to just line them up and kill them all day.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't have to worry about where they lived in the neighborhood, because there would be no neighborhood that they live in, because I'd send them all to hell.
Yeah.
So, Tigger. What about Tigger?
Well, he's another guy. He's got all these mistresses coming out, after him. I think his wife was one thing. His mistresses are, women with a grudge are very damaging to a person.
Right.
They may have to put him in the mistress protection program to keep him away from these women. He could voluntarily go into the mistress protection program, which would be probably better for him. Golf, he played a nice little. He played Graham McDowell in the final round. In the old days, he would always win. In the playoff, he's lost his edge.
Right.
Look, when you have personal problems, there's a lot to be said for spouses, wives, and a steady home place, because men can go out and women can go out and do things if you have a steady home.
You're absolutely right.
Your life falls apart. Tiger's a great example of it. I worked at Goldman Sachs for years, and they used to always look for people who had stable family lives, because you can't be putting out fires at home and have a crazy spouse and kids and do a good job at work.
And it separates them, does it not, Ron? I mean, Peyton Manning. I mean, and he does some just corny commercials that you gotta smile at him, okay? But I mean, he's as of today, he's got no garbage in the closet, no junk in the trunk.
Yeah, I know Peyton, and when I hang out with Peyton a lot, he's as good as he seems on the TV and his persona and personal life. And look, that's a lot to say about Olivia and Archie, his parents. They raised some really good kids. Eli's done a great job in New York. There's a lot of temptations in New York. Eli's done a great job in New York. I don't know if you saw Eli the other day, Sports Center top thing. He comes out for a press conference, what he was obliged to do. There was one guy sitting out there with a backpack in the media room, and he looked at it, and it was kind of weird. Most people had turned and gone away. I'm not going to talk to one guy. Eli stepped up and gave the guy, and let the guy ask him a question, because he's a dutiful guy. Right. And Olivia and Archie have raised dutiful kids, and Peyton, one of them, Cooper, who lives in New Orleans, is a good guy too. I mean, he's raised a lot of good kids, and that's the testament to Archie. Also, the fact he'd been to the NFL, he saw what the problems were.
He knew, okay.
So he's a great guy. So I mean, it can be done. It takes personal discipline, a certain amount of discretion, and no one's perfect. I mean, people are going to make mistakes. But what Tiger did, that was pretty amazing. And the fact that he got away with it for so long tells you the press was afraid to confront it, because you knew they knew. You don't not know about these things. You're not that intrepid, and people not know. So the media was protecting him. I think the media protects Obama in some degrees. I think Obama's got some issues that probably, if he was a different person, that would be out in the press. But at some point, the press eats you up, and they'll turn on you.
He don't even have any balls to play with. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's News View. I'm visiting with Ron Hart, syndicated columnist and Fox News View contributor. We're headed up on 2011, Captain. You see anything happening early in the year? What you feel about the economy? I mean, Christmas was better. Retail sales were up.
Retail sales up 5.5%. I mean, look, the economy's going to turn. I mean, all the politicians know it's going to turn. The question is, who gets credit for it? It would have turned by now had it not been for the failed policies of Obama. I mean, the economy is a naturally rejuvenating system. That's what politicians don't understand. They think they got to be involved. It's self-correcting. Housing prices go up too much. They get overdone. Boom, they come back down. It comes to equilibrium. The market is an amazing mechanism for valuing certain products, valuing labor, talent, money. And some people don't like the answer. Because they're not valued very highly by the capitalist system. Right. But the capitalism is a tremendous system. When left alone and unfettered, it does a great job. Now what happens? The government gets involved. They take money by force from the most productive part of society. get their hands on it, usually take 20 cents to 25 cents of their greasy hands through Washington lobbyists. They give it out to the least productive part of society. So they take money from the most productive part of society that generates jobs and shops and puts it in the least productive hands. If you keep doing that, you don't have much of an economy, you don't have much of a country. And hopefully, now that the stimulus, which is a terrible mistake, $800 billion, completely worthless. And Obama, remember Obama used to talk about jobs? He said, we're going to create jobs. Well, they didn't create jobs. Then he said, jobs saved.
Right.
Now he's saying even the jobs weren't saved. There's $2.5 million, 2.5 million jobs lost since the stimulus bill was signed in the private sector. 400,000 jobs created in the government sector. 2.5 million jobs lost. So now he's saying, instead of jobs saved or lost, he says, life's touched. That's the new catchphrase. You can always tell it because he'll say it, and PMS NBC will say it, and all the talking heads will say it. Chris Matthews will say it, and that's the new word, life's touched. So I don't want him touching my life. I don't know about you.
10 seconds. Tea Party. Does it have legs?
No. I think it's a great concept. It's a rudderless ship. No one's really in charge of it. No one's stepped up. The concept's good. It's made the Republicans out like Republicans and cut the budget. But I don't think it manifests itself in a viable third party.
Ron Hart, remember, those are my views. What are yours?